Amy L. Bernstein. How are you today?
I am great, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to diving into your story and learning more about you and sharing that with the creative community.
Great. Me too.
Let me give the audience a brief introduction here for you so they get a feel for who you are before we dive into your story. You're an author of the book Wrangling the Doubt Monster, a well-received guide offering strategies for overcoming self-doubt in creative and professional life, praised by Kirkus Reviews and others. You published the novel Potrero Complex.
Petrero. Yeah, I picked a hard one.
Potrero, okay. Critically applauded speculative thriller exploring themes of pandemic aftermath, technology, and individual agency. And also your latest book, Tent City, which is coming out this year. You've won awards at Bookfest for your work, The Night Hawkers, demonstrating cross-genre capability from fantasy and adventure to literary fiction. You earned the 2022 Young Adult Fiction Award from the Maryland Writers Association for Fran the second time around, showing your strength in young adult storytelling and themes of redemption and identity. You also are a coach and you have workshops for creatives where you maintain a weekly reflections Substack. Gosh, getting tongue-tied today, called Doubt Monster. And this positions you not just as an author, but as a mentor in the creative recovery space as well, which is very dear to my own heart,
Mine too.
that creative recovery.
Absolutely. Creative recovery, creative explosion, creative exploration, all the things.
Yes, all the things, for sure. Let's start off with my only scripted question that I have, and that is, where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Amy?
I was born in Newark, New Jersey, but I didn't grow up there. I like to joke that my family only moved to several of the original 13 American colonies. So we moved around to New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, while my father basically chased the corporate American dream. And, I had a pretty straightforward upbringing. I was fortunate to be well sheltered, well loved. And, I wouldn't say that my childhood was eventful. I don't think that I could claim otherwise. I would say that my most recent years, in some ways, have been my most eventful creatively, but my childhood was pretty placid.
Okay, okay. How about elementary school? Were you one of the kids that would sit towards the back of the class and preferred not to be much noticed, or towards the front where you could answer questions right off the bat?
I love that question. I think I was really weirdly conflicted for a long time. I wanted to matter. I wanted to count. I wanted to be noticed, but I was terrified of being noticed. So I think I was a little bit divided there. I mean, I always wanted people to think that I was like smart and I knew the answer and I was a typical good girl, which many women in my generation were raised to be. So I think I probably was going to be more toward the front. Like also I was academically inclined, like I loved school. I probably was closer to the front, but of course then there was the day where the teacher actually slapped my hand with a ruler for being for mouthing off. But other than that, I was a very good girl.
So you had a little bit of a rebellious part of you
I
early
did. That was unusual. She slapped me with a ruler. She made me stand in the corner, and I think must have been like second grade. She was very mean, and she had asked something like, "Who wants to do this particular assignment or work now or something?" And I just said, "Oh, skip it." And for that, I was punished, and I've never forgotten it.
on. Oh, wow. Also, too, what an impressionable age. Second grade,
Yes,
right around 7 years old-ish.
yes.
Oh, man. Skip it. What a fascinating response. Uh,
And so out of keeping with who I was as a kid and as a adolescent and as a young adult. But I think that there was that rebellious, anti-authoritarian streak in me all the time. It was just hiding most of the time.
I get it. I totally get it. Did your mom work at all while you were growing up, or?
My mom did not work. She was the classic housewife and caretaker to, she really took it seriously as a job. She was an extraordinary cook. She kept a beautiful house. She raised 5 children.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
it born 7.5 years from top to bottom. So there was a lot of us in a small amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How about grandparents? Did you know your grandparents as a
I
child?
knew all of my grandparents, and I
Oh,
knew them really well into my 20s. So
oh, wow.
when I was growing up, I thought everybody had grandparents and they spent time with them and they knew them and they got to visit them and all those things. Of course, that's not true. We were just really lucky. And
Mhm.
the only thing I regret is that I couldn't have had the presence of mind to learn so much more about their own pasts and their own families. They didn't want to talk about it, and we didn't think to ask. But I'm really glad that I knew them as well as I did because it helped to explain my parents as well.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Was there any creativity in that immediate vicinity that you saw early on that maybe imprinted on you a desire to continue with that?
The short answer is no. I didn't grow up with creative role models in any traditional sense. What the father of an elementary school friend of mine, was he artistic? Yes, but that wasn't front and center on my radar. And we did take piano lessons, and I did love music. And there was that. And I did sing in choirs for a long, long time, beginning in elementary school. So I guess I'm answering this incorrectly because yes, there was that, but there was no there was no adult role model of a life in the arts, which
Okay.
I mean, I wish I'd had that, but it wasn't something that you went on to do. Like, you weren't supposed to think about it, I don't think, seriously. And that became
Yeah.
a source of conflict for me.
Yeah, for sure. I can relate. I didn't have that either. Although I did have some aunts and uncles that were in creative industries. My mom's brother, youngest brother, worked in the printing industry, worked for a company called Card and Label in Rogersville, Tennessee, which is where her side of the family is from. And they printed all of the cigarette cartons for
Mhm.
RJ Reynolds, all the
Mhm.
Marlboro
Mhm.
wrappings and all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
was a pressman who had to do quality control.
Mhm.
So he's having to make sure that all the registration was there, all that kind of stuff. And then her sister, for a period of time, she was an industrial engineer, had a master's degree in that, and she worked for Levi Strauss
Mhm.
for a while. Then went on to work for the Sportsac handbag
Mhm.
company.
Yes, I remember well.
And so I had like peripheral creatives that were around
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
They didn't really do the creative component of those
Mhm.
jobs, but they
Mhm.
were in that environment and they had
Mhm.
that perspective that they could give me that, whatever I was drawing or creating early on as a kid, make sure that I was making it simple enough, especially if it was a garment that I was creating or a product that I was wanting to make or, some kind of toy or anything like that. They always instilled into me to make sure that you think about the fact you're probably not going to be the one that's actually making this, that it's going to be somebody else. So you have to make sure that as you're designing it, it needs to be simplified enough to where it's not so difficult for it to
Mhm.
go into production. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's something that I cherished that was really instinctive in my career with pivots that I've made
Mhm.
into multiple industries. I always had that in my head.
That's very smart advice. Yeah. But as long as it doesn't stifle your creativity in the process.
And it didn't. It didn't. It was just that little nudge of, keep doing what you're doing, but just keep this in mind down the road. And that was a great bit of advice. And then on my dad's side, wasn't a whole lot of creativity there either. I had a cousin who was a florist for a while. Mom did hair. beauty. She was a beautician, still has her license to this day, but she doesn't do many people's hair any
Hmm.
longer. Dad was a mechanic, kind of similarly, didn't have that awareness of a relative or somebody within the family that had that creative juice flowing through them. As you were getting closer to middle school and doing the piano and choir, stuff like that, did you feel like that was something that you might want to potentially pursue even more?
In fact, what I really fell into was theater.
Okay.
And by middle school, I was really seriously into theater. I was taking theater classes and being in plays during the school year. And then I was going to an arts and music camp in the summer, 3 summers around that time, where I was quote unquote majoring in drama, like at this summer camp. And I kind of thought in the back of my mind that it was something I might really want to pursue, but I wasn't able to hold on to that idea. I don't know. I think all the messages were, my dad was a businessman and my parents were just, they were very practical depression era kids. And I
Okay.
think I think the dominant thought was always, yes, you're going to support yourself, but you've got to be really practical about it. And I don't think the arts was something they appreciated the arts themselves quite a bit as consumers, but I don't think they saw it so much as a professional option. And
Gotcha.
I because I told you about all those different moves, the different colonies, when I ended up going to high school in a completely unfamiliar state and town and lost all my drama connections, and I wasn't able to jumpstart it the same way. And I've often wondered if I stayed in that environment, would
Right.
I have embraced it even more? But it was sort of I was forced to break with it.
Mm.
And I think it says a lot about being in an environment where certain things are nurtured. If you're there long enough and you really get that nurturing and support, you're really seen and people really tell you you're really good at this and they encourage you, that could nudge you in a direction. Whereas when you lose access to that, that's it. It's like it's over. And I will just say that what's so funny about it is in my many, 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 many decades later, I guess in my 50s, I started writing when I had to start writing more creatively. I started writing plays. And I couldn't figure out why I was gravitating to writing plays. I'd almost completely forgotten that I'd been a drama kid. And I was writing some play. I was doing these other plays. I was like, why am I doing this? No, I was a drama kid. Here, this has been living in me all this time. I forgot all about it. And this is why I'm writing plays.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing that it was hibernating.
It was hibernating. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
hibernating. Just like my rebellious streak was hibernating.
exactly. Exactly. How about your siblings? Did any of them have that creative interest at all as well?
I have another sister who's also particularly musical, and my brother my brother actually went to film school and was in film for several years before making some other pivots. But so he's kind of got that, and he became a professional chef, and that's really creative.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So it's there among us. My dad, when my dad was in his teens, he wanted to go to the New England Conservatory of Music to be a singer.
Oh, okay.
And his parents said, no way. I don't know what they told him precisely. We can't afford that. That's a ridiculous choice. We're not doing that. You're not going there. And he just gave up immediately. I think he probably was angry for 5 minutes and he gave up. I mean, he became like a really corporate business type guy, right? When that door to the arts was closed to him right away, that was it. Like he just put away childish things and that was it. It was over, right? There's this
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful photograph of my father looking like Frank Sinatra in this glamour shot, this, colorized or colored photograph of him holding sheet music, like on a stool, like a singer.
Nice.
And it's funny because it's not the guy we really grew up with.
But how cool to have that as a memory,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
something to hang on to,
yeah.
tangible. Yeah, that for so many years, early in the 1900s, it was those options were not looked at as viable paths.
They're still
Um,
not today by many people, still not
True.
seen as
Yeah,
viable. I mean,
yeah,
parents don't want their kids majoring in the reason the humanities in colleges are having so much trouble is parents don't want their kids majoring in the artsy fartsy stuff. They wanted to major in, finance and all those kinds of things. And it's very unfortunate, I think. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
my, my mother, my mother wanted to be a writer, I think a poet and a writer, and she gave up on that real fast. She was married at 18, became basically a sort of full-time housewife, had to work part-time in the beginning to put a little food on the table when my dad was just getting was on the GI Bill after Korea. But she set aside all those dreams as well, like really quickly. So I think it says that we can have those longings and even some talent and all those things, but gosh, I mean, so many things have to line up, right? You have to be nurtured and encouraged or have a tremendous amount of interior drive to push that all forward. It doesn't
Yeah,
just happen.
for sure. Absolutely. The interesting component that just came out here was the fact that when I asked you, was there any creativity?
I said no.
You said no. And now as we're talking, it starts coming out. But yet
Right,
it was shut down
right,
in that. It was
right.
stopped.
So there's nothing I saw growing up. I know it,
Yeah.
but I didn't see it.
Yeah. But what's amazing though is it came out within the children,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I can only imagine really, that they may have looked at that and been like, "Oh, wow. I'm glad to see that they're being able to express."
I never got that vibe. My parents are both deceased now. I never got that vibe from them. I think that they respected the traditional professions and I didn't maybe particularly value the artsy stuff. My father's first cousin was a very successful screenplay writer named Walter Bernstein, who, I mean, to the point where he had a big obit in the New York Times when he died, whatever, 10, 15 years ago, a very old man. He wrote the script with one of Woody Allen's most famous movies that before he was writing his own scripts, and he wrote a bunch of other stuff. And my father's attitude toward his cousin was always like, oh, Walter. Like he thought Walter was a snub and he thought Walter was whatever. And like my father was very, I think, dismissive of it. And who knows, maybe there was some envy there that
Right.
about the artistic career, but
Yeah.
I don't know. He never would have admitted to that. And so I really never really knew the guy, but it was there, but my father's attitude toward it was very, very dismissive, even though he'd been very successful. So
Yeah.
that tells you what you need to know.
Well, and too, it shows how strong that no that he got early on in terms of,
Yeah,
that's not gonna work for you're gonna have to go in a different direction.
yeah,
How quickly that got shut down and boxed up and put on a shelf for him.
yeah, yes, yeah. Well, when you have to think about the times too. Well, growing up, I mean, this would have been in the post-war period, and folks didn't have a lot of money, and you had to get on with things. And
Yeah.
then at a very young age, my father was married and he was starting on a large family, and he had to support everybody. And there's our society, our culture, and this is something I talk about a lot in a lot of forums, is our culture doesn't make a lot of room for the arts to pursue the arts as a profession. People do it, but the culture in the society does not make it easy for them to do it.
Right. No, absolutely. It's dog eat dog. There's a lot of gatekeepers. All of those types of things have a tendency to put a stop to many individuals who are tremendously creative, that they just don't have an opportunity to see a way forward. But from my perspective, with the way that technology has come about, the internet, I think there's a prime opportunity for more people to be creative if they can learn how to put themselves out there, which again, as artists, that's probably one of our biggest downfalls is we don't always want to put ourselves out
Right,
face forward,
right.
showing off a scenario. It's always, we just want to do it, create it, set it there. If somebody likes it, cool. We'll just keep creating. Or we don't keep creating, depending on what that response is. But I think there is more of an opportunity now for bypassing gatekeepers, bypassing a lot of societal structure that has a tendency to say, no, it's not good, but this over here is good. This over here, okay. This over here, phenomenal. Those types of things, I think if there was like a mini flood into the market of creatives, that tone of conversation would start to fade out to it where it might be a little bit more accepting, being able to see multifacets of creatives putting things out there in the world.
Yeah, I think that's already happening, certainly in publishing, about which I'm quite knowledgeable. That's definitely happened because people can self-publish their own work now, and there's no gatekeeping. It's
Yeah.
just a question of finding readers who want to read your material. And readers are very accepting of a lot of material that it may not be the best thing they ever read, but they find things to like about it. And so people's way of judging some of this material is shifting. And it's not in the hand. It used to be in the hands of the professional critics, and there are almost no professional critics anymore anyway. And so
Right.
I agree with you that there's less gatekeeping, but I also think that artists are artists because they feel compelled to express themselves through an art form, whether it's for themselves or for someone else. And like for me, I've had tons and tons of rejection and things of that nature, but if you really, really want to do it, you persist anyway. You just do it,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure. With having to switch schools, switch states,
Yeah.
and start in high school in a completely whole new environment, how did that affect you in terms of your sense, that little rebellious part of you,
Yeah.
that little part of you that was trying to express in the theatrical part of middle school that now is not the opportunity that you had? How is
Yeah.
that individual you at that point in time trying to
Well,
figure
look,
things out?
yeah, looking back on it, I still had that dual personality in that, which on the surface, I was absolutely a well-behaved rule follower. I was where I was supposed to be. I didn't, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs, I just didn't get it. I didn't hang out with people making bad decisions. I didn't do any of those things. But I did still have that rebellious streak, and I rebelled against some of the rules that I thought were so stupid and shouldn't apply to me because I didn't value them. And I'll give you a very specific example. Like when it came time, I mean, I came of age at the time when like you had to go to college, you had to take the SAT. Like this is like there was no choice. This is just what you did, right?
Yeah.
It's not that I didn't want to go to college. It's that I'm not the world's best test taker. I sort of have a very free-ranging mind, and I refused to study for the SAT, which I really needed to do. I refused to like take it seriously, and so I did it, but I like in a blowing it off kind of way, and I didn't score well, and I was rebellious in this sort of very channeled way, which is basically if I'm allowed to curse, it's like I was kind of like fuck this. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I feel like it doesn't apply to me. It's not speaking to me as a person. I
Right.
also felt that way about senior prom. I grew up in a community and at a time where this was still a big deal. As
Right.
like, I'm like, fuck the senior prom thing. This is like an archaic ritual. I don't want any part of this. Like, I just don't feel like I need to go put on a dress and go do this thing. And I ended up doing it. I got pressured into it. And I wrote a whole essay about it last year, actually. It took me several decades to write about it. But so I was rebelling within my good girl confines.
Yeah.
But it was definitely rebellion. It was definitely there.
That's the beautiful
Mm.
thing that I'm really enjoying from your story so far is that part of you that comes out and, like you just said, literally, fuck it. I don't want to do that. No, you ended up getting to one of them at least, but it was that still mindset of, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. But no, I don't really know about this. And I think those are the beautiful parts of creatives that are the most interesting for me. Those that can be chameleons in a way and blend when needed to, but also go your own way.
I agree. And I think that people with a very creative mindset don't realize that they're seeing the world and interpreting the world in ways that are different from other people. And I've come to see that. I've always seen the world, I think somewhat differently, or I noticed things that other people didn't notice. And I'm not holding myself out as a genius. I'm just saying my brain works a little differently. And I'm also not saying I'm not a neurodivergent person either. I'm not saying that either. I just want to be clear. But I
Yeah.
mean, like I obsess about things about the passage of time and what is time. And I look at really old buildings and I think a lot about the deep past and what was here. And I'm with people and I'm realizing they're not thinking about any of these things. They're not, and I'm obsessed with them. And and it makes its way into my fiction as well. And I realize that I do think somewhat differently. And I've always struggled to feel understood, I think, in many levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just had different thought patterns.
Oh, I get it. I completely get it. Exact same like even from the testing component. I hate
Mhm.
tests. Hate them
It's
with
the
a
worst.
passion.
It's the worst.
Yeah. It's like, why do I even need to do that? What is it going to tell me? That I can answer a question or
Right.
memorize a question and answer?
Right. Which, maybe I can, maybe I can't. And for me, it also extends to, and I wonder if you share this as well, but I don't like all the popular like online word game puzzles. Like all my husband and lots of friends do these things, the Wordle and others. Like to me, it's like a test. No,
Yeah.
it's like I don't channel my thinking. I don't channel my thinking that way. I don't want to channel my thinking that way. I don't want you to give me these hardbound rules and then I have to figure something out according to your rules. Writing fiction, writing a book is a tremendously complex puzzle, but I get to make up how I do that puzzle. That's where the satisfaction is. So I don't, like the word games and I don't like that. Even
Don't
though
even.
I like words. I like words, but not the word games.
Yeah. I get it. Totally get it. So after doing somewhat poorly on the SAT
Yes.
and having to make a decision of what am I going to do next? Did you choose to go to college or did you choose to go out and find work at that point in time?
No, in my family and in my time in my community, I was never not going to go to college. But my
Okay.
father and I had a huge fight because he wanted me to go to the state school, which in my view, at the time, it was just like the catch-all. It was like there's nothing special about it, just really big. And at the time, my feeling was, no, I'm better than that. I need a better school. So I valued myself in a certain way intellectually. I thought, no,
Mhm.
I'm not going. He was like, no, we're not going to pay. I'm not going to pay for the private school. You're going to go to the state schools. Like we had massive fights about it, and plus I had not scored well. I got waitlisted to the top small private school of my choice. But the truth is, I basically talked to those people at the school of my choice, and I made the case to them how deliberately I had chosen them and why it was the right school for me, and that I really needed to be there. And they let me in.
Yeah. Nice. That's a highlight moment. I want the audience to hear that loud and clear. Being your own advocate
Hmm.
in your creative journey, even if it's a mental health struggle, being your own advocate to find your way to what you're looking for, to where you think you need to be. And if it's on a healing journey, to find what will work for you. Because we've known for many years that from the healing side of things in mental health, that one size does not fit all,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the creative community.
Hmm.
And so to be your own advocate and say, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is why I should be here, set you on a potential trajectory to allow that to start evolving again.
That's such a great way of putting it, Rich. And you're so right to highlight that point. And as you were speaking, I realized that talking to that college was the first time I really did advocate for myself, like no holds barred, like this is so important to me. And this has to happen for me. I know it's just what I have to do. And it was the first time I did that. And I'm really glad I did. And I was always sorry that we don't have to go off on this tangent, but my father couldn't see me for who I needed to be. He only could see me for what he needed me to be.
Right.
Um, and that I have to say that dynamic never really changed, but that and it does create emotional and mental health challenges because when you don't feel supported and seen for who you are, you're fighting a much more uphill climb
Yes.
to be that person because you're not getting that sort of nice push from behind quite so much.
Yeah.
And you have to do it yourself. And that's really hard. It's really hard. And yeah,
It is. It absolutely is. But, and also too, that's where that self advocacy can create that momentum for you,
yes.
to help alleviate some of that back push or the lack of support thereof. And again, too, I think it's part of many creative story is that support system is not always there and in
Right.
place. You're
That's right.
you're not always seen from those people that are supposed to show you the most love in your journey. And I think that's why a lot of times creatives struggle, with that self confidence, that self realization of value, different things.
Self-doubt, self-doubt. That's why I wrote a whole book about it. And the other component to that is that I talk to so many creatives who were told out loud by, parents and other family members, "Why would you wanna go off and do that? Be an artist or a writer, like, you're not very good at it, or you won't ever be very good at it, or you'll never make a living. Like, why would you do that? Just maybe keep this little hobby on the side." So we were put down for the things that mattered most to us,
Right.
and so many people have gotten those messages, and it's made it very hard for them to take their own creative urges seriously later in life because they didn't get that encouragement early on. And so the messages that are stuck in their head are, you shouldn't be doing this. You don't deserve to do this. You're not good enough to do this. It's not practical. You should be practical. All those things really weigh on people for really most of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It lingers. It
Yeah.
lingers.
Yeah.
Getting into that school, what did you decide you were going to major in at that point?
English literature.
Okay.
No question. I knew that. Well, for 5 minutes, I thought philosophy, and for 5 minutes, I thought art history. But the philosophy professor, the material, he was so boring so fast that I couldn't do it. And he had us reading Kant from the first week, which no one could understand. And the art history, which I absolutely loved and love to this day. And I believe, I will just say, I have real talent in that area. I think I could have gone on, like, to being like a curator or somebody in a museum world. I think I could have really done well. However, the art teacher was just really mean, and I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think he really, really didn't like women, and I remember he marked me down on a paper, and I was so passionate about the art stuff, and that was enough. That was in line of what we're talking about. That
Yeah.
was it. "Oh, I guess I'm not good at this," or "You don't think I'm good at this," or it's like, and I was memorizing all the paintings and all the dates, and I loved it so much, and I was really into it, and a tiny bit of encouragement. I probably would have been an art major, but I also loved reading and writing so much, so I became an English literature major, which I also
Wow.
loved.
Yeah. I have a similar scenario just like that as well. When I went off to college to study graphic design, my first basic drawing teacher, halfway through the semester, my parents came to the school to just visit and check in, see how I was doing. And he literally told them that I would be nothing more than a B student.
Mm.
And I was so devastated when they told me that he said that. He said,
Oh,
"You need to try harder." And I'm like, "Wait a second. Are you kidding me? Try harder?" Like, I'm
oh.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing
Mhm,
everything I'm supposed to be doing.
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
trying as hard as possible. Also, I'm having to work while I'm doing
mhm.
this as
Yep,
well, out of
yep,
state, so
yep,
don't know the environment real well. And then you have all these extracurricular things that because it was a private school too. They
mhm.
required you to have to go do these other things, and it was just,
Yeah, yeah,
"Why am I doing this? This is dumb. I don't wanna do this."
yeah.
Eventually, I just dropped out because I couldn't
Mhm,
afford to. continue with it. I was failing everything but the art classes. And it was like, all right, I'm just going to dive into this world on my own and find my own way. So I can totally relate to having an instructor say, this isn't going to be where you need to be.
And I think it just goes to show that particularly when we're at that age, particularly in these creative fields, what we really need is encouragement and support. It's not about your merit at that moment. It's not about somebody's judgment of your talent.
Right.
We just really needed the encouragement. And I didn't get it in that moment. You didn't get it in that moment. And it really does set us off on other paths, right? And that's what a shame that the teacher said that. And honestly, what a shame that your parents said it to you, because they could have not told you that. And, you could have continued to feel like motivated, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 that's tough. It's not very fair.
Yeah. And my response to that as well was, I was like, all right, I'm going to show them. I'm going to do this portrait, and it's going to be the best piece that I've created the entire semester. And he gave me an A minus.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, it wasn't that B that you said I was going to continuously always
Mm-hmm.
get. So that was enough for me to just break that barrier just a little bit
Right.
and realize, okay, I'm going in the right direction that I know I can go.
I wish I should have had that moment of clarity that you just shared, because when I was in that small private college I was telling you about, I learned that one of the teachers had decided to read my paper to the other class as a
Oh,
great
wow.
example. And
Yeah.
so the message I should be getting from that is, oh, maybe you can write, maybe you are heading in the right direction. But I was even then just so I was so unsure. It's typical at that age, but I was just so unsure of myself and couldn't really value my own capability. And I fought through it over many, many years. And again, which is why in midlife I end up writing Wrangling the Doubt Monster, because no matter kind of what came my way, the doubt was just it was just there. And I feel like those seeds are planted very early. I mean, it's partly your personality, but those seeds are also planted very early, you know?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, and also too, from your storyline, you got that a little bit after doing the piano and the choir and then the theater, and then you had to completely switch a state. Like your environment got uprooted completely.
Yeah,
And so it was like, now you've got to refigure out how to try and find that environment in the new state, even
that's true.
as
That's
well
true.
as the new school.
Right.
As you're going through college, English lit, learning these different things about the different types of writing and literature and all of this, are you at that point have any inclination that you may step out at the end of those fourth year and step into a career in writing? Or did that come later on? What was the
I
thing
my
you
Yeah,
read at?
my first vision, my first strong vision for my post college years was I was desperate to go into book publishing. Which book publishing was very strong at the time, and I wanted to go and do that route where, like, you're an editorial, you start at the bottom, you're an editorial assistant in a publishing house, and you read manuscripts and maybe you do things with authors. And I don't think I knew what all it entailed. I just knew that my love of books and reading and writing, the publishing industry seemed like the perfect thing for me. That didn't happen. So many things didn't happen. That didn't happen for I don't think we can go into all the reasons, but it's nothing nefarious or dire, or it's all a series of events, right? That you don't control at the time. And then you look back. We had a very close family friend who worked in publishing in a serious role. And he allowed me to intern with him for a small, begged, can I just have like a short internship or something? And he ended up getting really angry at me. And because I was reading, he gave me what's called the slush pile, this is back in the day. They're literally hard copies of manuscripts piled on a desk. Somebody has to go through them and like type polite rejection letters. This is how it used to work. It works a
Yeah.
little bit differently now. And I found some that I thought were really wonderful. And so I think I've typed up something encouraging, which meant they were going to send the full manuscript. They were going to do something or other. And the guy who brought the family friend, he just got so enraged with me. Now, I had not really been properly trained. I feel like probably nobody was supervising me. Nobody was paying me any attention. I was still in college and I was doing this. And so I was kind of set up to fail, and that I was following my own instincts, and he had no right really to get angry. That wasn't a fair response. But
Yep.
like, that was the end of my publishing career. Like, he wanted nothing to do with me. And he forgot about this, I think, and I never forgot about it.
Yeah.
And he's 97 years old now and not in very failing health. And this is not someone I see, that we don't live near each other, but I never forgot this. I never
Right.
forgot, because I felt a door closing that had meant so much to me. And now there's a case where someone could say, well, why didn't you just cry another way? And I don't know the answer to that. I was still in college. I was struggling, I think, with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's not like in the movies where like you don't always have the gumption. You're just going to get out there, and not everybody is Elle Woods, right? Making her way through Harvard and law school and all that stuff, right? I didn't see how. I just didn't see how. I
Right.
wish I wish I could talk to that young woman and say, listen, you can push other doors open. You can, but I didn't know how.
Yeah. I think you're right too. It was almost like a setup. All
Yeah.
right, we'll give her this job. This is a slush book list. She can go through these, write the rejection letters. And you, being in the mindset already of knowing what you needed, you were trying to give that to others, of saying, hey, a little bit of words of encouragement may not be what you want to hear, but this was good. And I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And yet you get this response of as if you're doing the wrong thing.
Right. Exactly.
It's not the standard of the company of what
Well,
we do here.
I was exercising editorial judgment that I wasn't allowed to exercise. That was A. But the other thing, looking back, what I realized is it wasn't an internship. You put me alone in this desk with these things. I'm supposed to write I'm nothing but an amanuensis. All I'm doing is typing. I'm not learning anything. I'm not shadowing anybody. You're not really introducing me to the profession of what's like. Had he been a really good dude, he would have said, hi, everybody in the meeting. This is the daughter of a really close family friend of mine. She's shadowing me for these 2 weeks to see what it's like in publishing. That would have been a great response, but I didn't get that.
Yeah,
So,
what you ended up getting was that second grade teacher's response, that whack on the hand and put in the corner.
Rich, you got it. You got it. You are putting the pieces together. I think that's, and when you say that, when I look at all the times I sort of got beaten down, and there were a lot. Oh my gosh, I can tell you so many stories. I have to tell you this one story.
Go ahead.
I was just out of college. I'm living in New York, and a good friend of mine is friends with this guy who's a little older than we are, and so we think he knows what's what in the world. He's probably 5-10 years older than we are. And I was thinking about seeing if I couldn't get a job doing something with the Village Voice, which was like the big, big, big deal. And like
Sure.
that, I aspired to writing for the Village Voice, or maybe I could get some editorial assistant. He sat me down and lectured me for an hour on why women can't possibly write for a publication like that, because I could never be a reporter. It's not what women do. And the thing is, this is like the height of women's lib. And so I could see how an outsider would say, well, obviously he was just spewing a bunch of bullshit. You didn't believe any of that. But the way he said it was, he put me down so intensely about how are you going to do that job and then become a wife and mother? Huh? How are you going to do that? How's that going to work? You're not going to be able to do that. And like, he gave me this lecture that was so both degrading and yet somehow sank in. And so I'm like, oh. And so I sort of like let that door close too. And I can laugh at it now, but it's really sad, actually.
It did. It amazes me that it amazes me many times that we've even got to where we are as a
I know.
society with the way that we've acted towards each other.
Yeah.
It's like, what has happened? I don't understand any of it. I don't think I even understood it as a little kid looking at the way things were taking place around me.
Yeah.
It's never made sense to me. And I think too, that's part of my own little rebellious side that has to step into something like this where I can highlight different things and say, look, this shit ended up happening, or this was something fantastic that you did. Maybe you didn't realize it until this moment of me recognizing it. But sharing these stories of creatives' life journeys and what they're doing currently and how
Mhm.
that evolves and comes into being.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's my little way of showing the world that, hey, it doesn't have to look like all of that stuff out there. It can look like this, and you can do something that's bringing joy to your heart and your soul.
Exactly.
And those are the things that we need to see and hear in today's world.
Absolutely. And that is a big part of why I spend a lot of time mentoring and teaching others and doing creativity workshops with others to remind creative people that there are paths forward for them when they don't see them.
Yes.
And that it's because I never had anyone do that for me. And I really want to do that for other people. And I see the benefits and the joy of that. And I get joy from it too. And, I had to reach a point in my life, really the middle smack in the middle of my life, where I realized I can't keep going on the way I am. I can't just keep working for other people and doing this work that's killing my soul. And I've got to make my life serve me. And that's not meant in a selfish way at all. It's meant the way I always tell creative people I'm counseling is every human being has an innate right to be a creative person.
Yeah.
And nobody can truly take that away from you, but they can make it very hard for you. But you have the right to express your creativity. And I realized that I wasn't doing that in my own life, and I knew I needed to. I knew I had to. There wasn't even a choice anymore. I couldn't continue to live my life with any sense of self-respect or frankly mental health
Yeah.
if I didn't make some real changes to bring more creativity into my life. And I it was just probably one of the most important talk about self-advocating was probably the most important things I ever did. Yeah, for myself.
Leading up to that pivot point, what were the other opportunities that you stepped into that you just did because in order to move things along? And what was that moment when you were
Right,
like, "Oh,
right.
this needs a change?"
So I spent decades trying to have it both ways. I tried to marry my need to be creative and to be a writer with, being able to feed and house myself as at the time, a single adult for
Yeah.
many years. And so I was after, some fits and starts. I mean, I did become a write for magazines. I did become a journalist. I did
Okay.
become a communications director, which were jobs built around a lot around managing information and sharing information and putting into forms that people could understand. So it was really about communicating. So I did all those kinds of things professionally for many years. So I was always working in a capacity as a writer, but always in service to other people's agendas. And I reached a point where, and I did well. I was rewarded financially at a certain point. And I was rewarded with literal awards at various points. And I reached a point where I was beginning to feel so burned out and almost disassociating from myself. It's like I can't live I'm living this life and I can't live this life anymore. And a day happened to me when I'd been commuting for almost a dozen years from Baltimore to Washington, D.C., which is about an hour by train. And one day I stood on the platform waiting for the commuter rail to go south to D.C. And on the opposite side of the same platform was the daily train that went north to New York.
Okay.
I was moments away from going to the other side of the platform, not going to work, going to New York, losing myself for a day, maybe more, letting my family know that, hey, I'm not home, or maybe I'm not coming home tonight, or I'm leaving, I'm running away. And I didn't do that. But in my head, I came so close to doing it. That was a moment when I knew I had to change significantly. I was
Yeah.
like literally almost walked out of my own life.
Wow. That highlight moment here, folks. That is a moment of crisis, but in the same breath, a moment of strength
Mm,
because the decision to see all of the exit routes and not take them requires tremendous strength and tremendous courage to go in the direction that doesn't have the exit sign above it. That's a powerful description of that type of an instance.
And anyone who reaches that pivot moment, you have a choice to make right then.
You,
You have to decide what change is going to look like in your life, meaningful change, and what you're willing to do to get it. Or you have to make peace with where you are. And if you can't make peace with who you are, what you do, how your life looks to be unspooling for the next couple decades remaining to you, if you can't make peace with that, you have to step into embracing change, which means embracing risk.
yeah,
And it means doing things that might be new and different in various ways. And it means disrupting your own status quo. And if your family, in my case, husband and a daughter that we were raising at the time, they have to understand why they have to see you and they have to understand why it's necessary. It's a
yeah.
lot. It's a lot to take on.
And when you got back to them, was there any bit of understanding of I need to make a different route moving
I
forward?
this is where, the kind of support that we have in our lives is really comes into play because I will say that my husband is very risk averse. So for him, and this is true for many of us, we're surrounded by people who love us very much, but they may not want to take the kinds of chances that we want to take. And therefore they fear for us because they wouldn't take that chance.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about super radical. It took me quite a while longer to find a job that was less stressful, closer to home, so I could begin to take back some of my time, which was the start for me, take back more
Okay.
of my time and my mental well-being.
Yeah.
This was a ratcheting down kind of a transition.
Sure.
Um, and I had to bring my husband along I'll be very honest about it. It wasn't like, sure, honey, whatever you want. I mean, it was, but it was also concern on his part in
Right.
some respects. And a couple of years later, as I began to sort of back myself into jobs that paid less, they were still draining me, but I was like backing myself down so I could begin. I took a playwriting course and I started doing these other things. Like I made room in my life for the things I had to make room for. I
Yeah.
literally did that. I literally made room in my life. When I started doing that, I continued on that path, and it took a total of about, I want to say 5 years, probably takes us just about up to the start of the pandemic, when I turned to my husband and I said, literally, it's not if, it's when I'm going to leave the workforce, period. And I'm never going back. And I had to prepare him for that moment over years.
Yeah.
So it's not like the day of the train episode. It's not like I went home that day and said, that's it, I'm quitting. I'm going to go enroll in art school. And like, that's very few of us can make that kind of disruptive change all at once. I couldn't do that. There was no way I
Sure.
could do
Yeah.
that. We had a
Yeah.
daughter to put through college. We needed my income, all the things, right? But the process began. And at one point I want to make, Rich, which I think is important for anyone who listens. What this really starts with is you must give yourself permission, permission to be that creative person and permission to take the steps and the risks that will get you there.
Yeah.
And permission is really where it begins, because otherwise you're going to stop yourself again and again. And what you have to do is give yourself permission to lean into those those changes and those opportunities. It really does start there.
Yeah, that permission for self-advocacy.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also too, again, that mindset of knowing you just needed the first thing you needed to do was reclaim time. Reclaim your time that
Hmm.
was getting drained by others, companies, individuals, all of those things. I mean, your own personal time. And what was fascinating that you just said was that you stepped into writing a play, which took me all the way back to you being in theater. And I was like,
Right.
oh, wow, what a connection line of
Yeah.
something of for you taking back your time went all the way back to the thing that you were truly enjoying in middle school that you got uprooted from. And that was taken away from you. That time was taken away from you. And your reclaiming of time is you starting to write play as part of that process of moving in a new direction. That was very fascinating to hear that come through.
You are right. I think you are connecting dots that sometimes, you don't think to see in yourself, but you are
Yeah.
right. And I also the first novel that I wrote largely on that commuter train between Baltimore and DC on my laptop because I had to prove myself that I could do it. I really wanted to do it, and I had to use the only time I had to myself during the day was that commute. The rest of my time was not my own. And by the time night rolls around, I mean, I'm a wet noodle. I can't do anything. I'm just not going to function. I used that time that way, and I think that was myself proving to myself, this matters to me. I'm literally doing this thing, and it matters to me. And here I am doing it, and that's how I show that it matters to me. It's not just talk. And I think when artists start really engaging with their artistic process, that's what happens. You do the thing, and then you
Right.
realize how amazing it feels, and then you want to do more of the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Was Wrangling the Doubt Monster the first step into writing for you that was really
No,
something? Okay.
no. I'm losing the track of the order now, but after writing several short plays and some full length plays and having some things performed and that kind of thing, I moved toward novels, which I began to feel more drawn to. Well, there's a number of reasons, but so I wrote a couple of novels before I wrote Wrangling the Doubt Monster. And I think as I began to understand the world of the writer better, the world of publishing better, what it takes to really persist, the amount of rejection that comes with that territory, and many,
Yeah.
many artistic territories, I realized how self-doubt had held me back in so many ways, in so many key moments of my life. And I realized that I wanted to begin to normalize some conversations around this collection of feelings about how we become our own stumbling blocks and why. And writing about that really helped me understand so much better some of my own patterns and what I have since learned, because the book came out about 11 months ago, 12 months, excuse me, 13 months ago. I can't do math, forget math. A little over a year ago, I've learned what a universal phenomenon this is among creative people because for all the reasons we just talked about. And so I have had these conversations, and it's incredible when people, they look at this book and you can open to any page, is like, oh, I'm feeling this is exactly how I feel. I feel the doubt. This is the way it makes me feel, and I'm offering inspiration and encouragement. How do we get past that? How do we walk with doubt? And I want to talk about these things. I think we should talk about them more. It's a very vulnerable place to be, and that's why there isn't always a lot of conversation around it. But I think if we can't be vulnerable, then we can't be truthful about these matters.
For sure. Absolutely. And also too, we can't be seen. If we keep that hidden, we
Yeah,
can't be ever seen.
absolutely. Yep.
So that, and again, too, that's where I'm trying to create this space of allowing that vulnerability to come through, because that is a lot of times the point of shift in many individuals
Yeah.
with their creative talents. Creating these plays, having them actually put on, seeing your writing come to life, what did that do for your confidence in reclaiming time?
Not as much as you think.
Okay. Okay.
Theater is a difficult discipline because it's very collaborative. Your play doesn't exist unless somebody's willing to give you a stage, somebody's willing to direct it, somebody's willing to cast actors, somebody's willing to make costumes, all these things. So it's a difficult sort of a thing to achieve. And I did love seeing my work on the stage. It was deeply empowering. I also felt I could never push my ambition far enough in that work, probably because I didn't have enough of a community in theater to want to support or champion my work. It's not just competitive, it's a very difficult world to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot of moving parts in theater,
Yeah.
and let me separate. So yeah, when those times when I was having a play on the stage, whether it was a 10-minute piece or an hour and a half long piece, it was an extraordinary feeling. And I had been an executive speechwriter at a pretty high level in Washington, D.C. before that. And watching a cabinet level person reading your words to a big, important audience is a lot the same feeling. You feel it's very empowering and you feel that you have made something from nothing that
Yeah.
has value for other people in different spheres. And it's very empowering in the moment, but then you are still subjected to everybody else's needs, wants, agendas, gatekeeping, all these other things. And art's messy, and making art's messy and making art with other people is messy. And that's just the way it is. I don't want to seem like I'm not complaining. It is the way it is. And so the pure moments of joy that you feel when your creativity is expressed and shared, they are balanced out by all the sort of the machinations and frustrations that come around it before and after.
Yeah.
And so it's not an unadulterated, if you're very driven as I am, it's not an unadulterated pleasure. The pleasure is mingled with these other moments and events and realities that sort of weigh in. So that's a
Right.
deeply uninspiring answer, but I'm being very honest.
No, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for because again, that's the thing that allows the audience to see that it's not all roses, even if it's a direction that you feel like you're should go in or want to go in, because it's still a process of creating, right? It's still a process of working through what's internal and having that expressed externally. And a lot of times for many creatives, that's a gap that doesn't always get bridged very easily.
Absolutely true. Yeah,
Needing to hear that honesty is what helps. That's the thing that, again, it's that vulnerable space of realizing I need to just say this the way it is rather
right.
than putting some frosting on it. And,
Right.
it goes back to that use of the F word about certain things. It's like you make that decision, fuck it. I'll just tell it like it is. No use
Right.
sugarcoating it. No use trying to gloss over it. Just tell it
Right.
like it is because that's me. That's my truth. And an individual's truth is a thing that doesn't always get respected, but it needs to be respected because who we are as individuals are the things that make the world beautiful. It's just too many people have the wrong glasses on.
Yeah, I often use colors as a very handy sort of way of thinking about this. We're all capable of seeing the world through so many different colors than we do.
Yeah.
And huh, it'd be a more loving place if we could do that better.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So how many books were created before the Doubt Monster came about?
created is one thing and published is another thing. I've written 7 books in all, including Doubt Monster. 2 are
Okay.
still to be published. And so Doubt Monster, a couple preceded Doubt Monster, and then came Doubt Monster, and now there's 2 more to come. They're just waiting for their release dates.
Gotcha.
So it was very much, in the stream of things, I guess you could say. I mean, I had enough experience under the belt by that point for those feelings and ideas to pour out. I mean,
Okay.
it's a classic example of a book that I could not have written that book at any other point in my life. I needed perspective
Yeah.
and distance, and I needed to understand things about my younger self and just things that were going on in general in creative spaces.
Yeah.
And so it all came together for me so that I was able to write that book.
And that's where I was going with that question was, what were the things that were taking place for that moment in time to happen when it needed to? And with that, what was the, again, freedom claim, time claim, rebellious instinct to take on the Doubt Monster?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to begin to practice more radical honesty about what it was like to be living a creative life. And I can, of course, just have that conversation with myself, or I can have that conversation with a real audience, meaning people who actually read the book and talk about it, and the people in my workshops.
Yeah.
And I decided that I wanted to go to that real route. The original title for the book, which the reason I share it is because it sort of offers a window onto what my thinking was at the time. It was called, I don't remember the tagline, but it was called "You Got This," and it was like a way of doing a elevated pep talk
Yeah.
for anybody in my situation. It was also a way for me not to feel alone and not to really feel like I was part of creative communities, because it's like, hey, I'm feeling this way. I'm betting you are too. And it turns out I was absolutely right. And
Yeah.
so it was like building a bridge for creatives to have conversations around these things. And I must have just needed to do that in that moment. I think it must have been boiling up in me for a long time, but it just sort of poured out as this lifetime of wanting to have those conversations, wanting to understand my own feelings around this. And, that books are written at the time when they need to be written. This is a great example of.
Yeah, for sure. Can we expand on this whole concept a little bit more for the audience? Because I think this is a huge thing that so many of us deal with. And you've developed this into a platform where you're constantly evolving the conversation of that, along with your coaching and workshops and stuff. What is some of the things that are presented there that were part of your experience that really play into many others, and people in any genre of creativity can grab it and take ownership?
Yeah. Let me answer that this way. My my awareness, my knowledge, my sort of conceptualization, and my strategies have all around dealing with creative self-doubt actually have evolved a lot after the book. So the book
Okay.
was this first foray into, here's how we all are feeling about this. I'm putting words to it. Here's what self-doubt really feels like. Here's how it makes you feel. And it's also inspiring in that I'm saying, here's how you can work with that. Here's how you can move past that. But I'm saying it in the book, it's almost a poetical kind of language. The book is not a how-to. It really is inspiration and encouragement, which you literally open to any page and you feel seen and encouraged, and you sort of can take a breath. What's happened since the book is sort of like how this practice has evolved, where there are strategies that I embrace and have written about elsewhere to help us manage creative self-doubt. And for example, I've actually already alluded to a couple of them. Giving yourself, first of all, permission to be a creator, to consider that the time that you spend doing creative work is of equal value to the time you spend doing anything else: cooking, cleaning, shopping, caregiving. I have had so many artists say to me, I just feel guilty if I steal an hour. But you're not, I mean, this is so right. You're not stealing anything. It's yours.
Yeah.
And it's part of how we express ourselves as human beings. And I've talked to women who are busy mothers and they feel so guilty. This comes up again and again. And so this really begins with, you must give yourself permission to recognize your own need as a creator, as a maker, as an artist. It's part of your own human experience. And you should not deny that. And
Yeah.
so it's not that you'll be a better mother, a better spouse, a better friend for doing these things that are part of what make you whole. So that's an important thing. And you have to really, really talk. A lot of this is mindset management. You have to talk yourself through this.
Right.
Another thing that, again, we alluded to this from my own experience. Start small. Start really, really, really small in making these creative embraces. If you are working full time, write yourself a note in the morning with some incredible idea you had, or a quick sketch, or 2 lines of a poem. You can begin by talking to yourself in the smallest, most secretive way possible, but you're having a creative conversation. You're starting a creative conversation, and more can grow from there. It's not always, as we said, it's not about crossing the train platform and going to New York and losing yourself, right? It's not about
Yeah.
the grand gesture. It's about the little things. They matter. Also, surrounding yourself with adversaries, surrounding yourself with allies and distancing yourself from adversaries. An ally to a creative is someone who truly supports and encourages and is comfortable with your risk taking and the uncertainty. And they're not pushing you for goals and productivity and making money. They just support where you are in your own journey. No question asked, no reservations. Now, the people
Yeah.
closest to us, our families, our loved ones, are often not those allies. They
Right.
can be our adversaries. And the adversaries are people who, even the best with the best of intentions, they fear for you. They don't understand the creative process. They don't understand why you would spend time doing something that's not going to have a payout or a payoff or something.
Yeah.
And so they are opposing you. And as we said earlier in this conversation, that's incredibly detrimental to a creative soul. We need people to inspire and encourage us and just accept us for the steps that we take, and not question and judge them. So
Right.
it's a shift that you have to make. And those are some of the things. There's other sort of mindset ways of rebalancing mindset, but those are some of the steps that we need to think about taking.
Yeah. Having those allies is hugely valuable because you're right many times. And you shared just a little bit of it, of the fact that your own husband, had a little bit of apprehension when you said, "Hey, I'm going to start going in this different direction here," because they don't have the capacity to understand the risk that we're willing to take
Exactly.
as a creative, just to allow that to come out of us.
Exactly. It's not a risk that they would take. So
Right.
so it makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And let me add that I've come up with like a little speech. I wrote an essay about this too. If you are surrounded by family and loved ones where you're the sort of the creative outlier and they really don't understand, and they kind of, you go home for holidays and stuff, and you kind of get a little bit badgered and a little bit beaten,
Yeah.
all those side eyes and all those questions about when are you ever going to finish writing that book, or like, why are you still doing that hobby, or like, why are you, like, all the things, right? All the things. It's like, well, that's never going to make you any money. I mean, why are you, all the things. It's like, you're never going to write a bestseller. Why would you bother to do that? And so one of the things that I counsel people, and to take this really to heart, is to turn to those loved ones and say, listen, I really appreciate that you're concerned kind of for my well-being, for my mental health, for kind of the choices that I make. But I want you to know that being creative is incredibly important to me. I'm really comfortable with the choices that I've made. And frankly, we don't even have to talk about this anymore. You can, if I change my mind about this, I will let you know, but we don't
Yeah.
have to continue to have a conversation about it. We can, move on to the other things that we share. And you can, I think it's worth putting that into practice, because having them judge us this way is really painful. I've lived it. Oh, I've lived it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you have to find
It's,
a way to turn it around for yourself.
yeah, it's not easy. It's not
No,
easy to live
no,
that. I've done it myself in many variations. It's not an easy thing to experience. And I think that's another side of the creative journey that's not always understood, even, is the amount of pain or weight that's taken on with a gamble and the realization of this may not work and I may not get very good feedback whatsoever, but I
that's
need to
right.
do.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a psychic cost that we pay all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that, that's that, again, that's that self advocacy to make sure that even in your risk taking and you're stepping into a creative endeavor, to always make sure that you're minding your mind,
Yeah. Very much so.
keeping that to a place of stability enough to help yourself get through it. And then thereafter, the potential for the feedback that's not always going to be great. And also too, our minds are a lot of times most harsh adversary.
Oh, yes. I've always been my own worst enemy, always. Still am.
Yeah.
No
Our
question.
own minds are a lot of times the most horrible adversary we will ever face as a creative, because it'll run its mouth 24/7.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So we don't need other people piling on. We do it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
These other books that you've created, The Nighthawkers, which won an award for you, demonstrating your ability to delve into a world of fantasy and adventure. Was that something that you needed to express based on a real life situation that
Mhm.
might have taken place?
No, I've written in multiple different genres, like mystery thriller, paranormal romance, fantasy. I guess I call it a political fantasy, which is there's no such thing. Fantasy, young adult, and now I'm really leaning into hardcore speculative fiction, really, which is asking what if questions about the future. I can't explain why I have gone in all these different directions. I think I just always followed the story that I wanted to write,
Okay.
and I wanted to push myself to see, can I write this kind of a story? But from a career standpoint, it's terrible, because if you can't build a following in one field. So a loyal fan base. In other words, it's much better, if you want to go out and write great crime fiction, just make all your books great crime fiction, because then you'll have this really loyal fan base and they always want your next book. I've done
Right.
that. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
do that. And I just didn't. And so I look like I'm just all over the map, because I am all over that. But I will say, it certainly has taught me. I've really, really, really been worked hard on the writing craft itself, how to write and how to be mindful of writing in different ways and different kinds of stories. And that's been powerful, useful, and gratifying.
How about Fran the second time around? Is that anything that relates to a personal
No,
experience?
that was the first novel. The one I wrote mostly on the train was that one.
Okay.
And I think the reason I wrote a young adult novel was that at the time my daughter was an adolescent. And I think that without even realizing it, I was at that time comfortable with writing a teen protagonist. And I really wanted to grapple with what would happen if a teen had to confront an extraordinary tragedy and grapple with the aftermath of guilt. How do you begin again at that young point in your life? How do you reinvent yourself after something terrible happens? And so that's why it's called Fran the second time around. And it is a YA book, but it's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Um,
I imagine it was immediately where I'm going is to middle school Amy that's unmotivated and taken to a completely different state. Her whole world is ripped apart. Her comfort
Yeah.
zone is torn apart, and she has to create a whole new storyline.
Who knows, Rich? Who knows where it comes from? Maybe not. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know.
That's immediately where I went when you said in an adolescence chance to create a new story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I went. That's fascinating. It's so fascinating. The work that you're doing with other creatives, I have a sense that is truly something that is soul nourishing for you. And I understand it because it didn't happen for you earlier on as that creative. So how much joy does that bring to you versus a creative practice like writing a book?
They're so complementary. And yes, it brings me tremendous joy, whether I'm mentoring an emerging writer. I am a book coach, so I do coach other writers,
Okay.
working mostly on nonfiction, helping them develop a structured book that could live out in the marketplace. It's tremendously rewarding. And then I do a tremendous amount of teaching, which is basically just articulating aspects of this difficult craft with a room full of people so that people can get their own. It's like, oh, okay, I see, I can do this or try that, or I wasn't aware of that. Very, very, very joyful. And plus all the essays that I share through Substack and other outlets where you're sharing thoughts and ideas and feelings of people, and it resonates, and people are like, yes, I needed this, or I feel this way too, and I'm so glad you put it out there. All of that is necessary because the writing itself is it's lonely. It can be punishing in that, you don't always know if you're doing the right thing, or you hit a hard patch, or whatever. It's a tough, it's a tough thing to do. So I need to balance both sides of myself very much. So my soul does get nourished, as you put it. I get fed and validated by the work I do with writers, and it helps me then go back to my own desk and do my own thing. So they
Yeah.
very much they goes. Now I will say, when I made that step away from my last official job around COVID, and decided I was going to do this full time, I didn't have all these other things in mind. I thought I was just going to write. My whole goal was, I got to start writing seriously, like write serious books in a serious way. That was the
Okay.
goal, not all these other things, which have now grown up around it, and which I'm so thrilled with. So you don't know where the future's going to take you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, another highlightable moment. You do not know where it's going to take you if you step into something that's truly what you've been desiring to do for quite some time. It it can lead, because that is the allowing part
Yep.
of the creative process
Yeah.
that opens doors and windows that we never potentially see otherwise.
Exactly. It's the upside of risk. We take the risk, which can be scary, but this is the upside of that. You are allowing yourself to grow in ways you didn't even know were possible. Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Fascinating. And I say that again, Amy, because I think your career's perspective in the industries of journalism, writing speeches, the different variables of what each one of those environments brings to the table in knowledge base to assist in the writing process. And then the fact that you are working with creator writers right now as a coach, I think it's highly valuable experience that comes into play because there's so many different angles and so much knowledge behind even the publishing component. Working at a publishing company and working in that environment, seeing how that operates is completely different from a lot of what the most writers are seeing in the world today, because self-publishing is way easier now for individuals versus the traditional process of going with a
Right.
publishing company.
Hmm.
I think that's a key thing that I want to highlight for the audience is that perspective is so valuable. And to have and work with somebody who has that broad range of experience is so much that needs to be cherished if you have the opportunity to work with Amy on something that you're writing, because it's knowledge and it's experience that you can't just get everywhere. It's not always easily accessible. So I wanted to highlight that for any budding writers that are out there, that from my perspective, just in this conversation, highly valuable to be able to work with you on a one-to-one basis. Just wanted to give you that little plug.
Thank you.
Tent City, this book that's coming out this year for you. I saw a little bit of the artwork for that with the cover. Is that a societal reflective storyline
Indeed.
that we're
Indeed.
experiencing? Yeah.
As really, despite all the genres, all my fiction, this is the thread. I'm very concerned with, always have been concerned with how power operates in societies, what politics does to people, what social justice looks like, and all these different things. And in fiction, there's many different ways to explore these things without hitting people over the head with a message if you do it right. So one of the things I love about writing in this sort of speculative fiction is that you get to pose what if questions. What if our economy were to go into a free fall and people and the American dream became all but an impossibility? What would that do to people? What would that actually look like day to day? It's kind of a scary question, and that's speculative fiction goes there. And so Tent City is a family saga that really is about how one family does lose its grip on the American dream as the economy basically craters in a small town, and how it affects the town and so many other people in it. And it's kind of the ripple effects. And it's a real exploration of that. And admittedly, while there is some hope at the end of the book, it does go to some dark places, because I think that we have a lot of escapist consumer media available to us, not just on television and films, but in books as well. I mean, fantasy genres are, at an all-time popular high and that kind of thing, and romance. And that's all wonderful, and it all deserves to be there. But I really think that fiction has a role to play in asking fairly serious questions too about the world that we live in, and using fiction as a way to explore some of those issues while allowing us to still feel sort of safely grounded in the present.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a highly creative position to move from, to ask these questions. And I think it allows for them to be presented in a way. And I'm again, I haven't read the book, so I'm speculating to an extent here, folks. I imagine it allows a question to be presented in a way that's not instantaneously put aside because of somebody's own personal opinions, right? Presented in a fictional or sub-fictional way that is just thought-provoking and is telling a story where you're guided by and invested in some characters that is literally a family, right?
Mm.
And watching what's happening to them and how that might, reflect on an individual who's reading it in some way might be something that allows perspectives to start shifting for others. Where in so many instances right now, everybody's so hardlined.
Yes, and I try to write books that do engender real conversation among real human beings, because I just that's fun. I find that fun and profitable, and also a great way to just be a human being, is to be able to read something, share something, read something, and then talk about it. I love that. Of course, ironically, I don't belong to any book clubs, but I do speak at book clubs, and
Right.
and hope to speak to book clubs if they get hold of this book when it comes out. But I do want to write. I have a tagline for myself, which is that I write stories that let readers feel while asking them to think.
Oh, I
And
love that.
so I like to do both. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that should be on bumper stickers everywhere.
If I could sell them, I would. I could put it on my own car. Hey, writing stories that let readers feel and make them think. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. This has been very, very enjoyable for me, Amy.
What
Truly.
a pleasure, Rich. I love it when two strangers could sort of come together half a country apart and just have a really meaningful conversation. And you've been very insightful and I've enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Whenever I come to an end of one of these episodes, I always want to give the audience a little reminder at the end. And this is definitely exemplative of your story today. And that is always listen to your heart, but be kind to your mind.
That's great.